Transparency. Is transparency actually a good thing, or could it mean something else? I think we are sold this lie that transparency is always a good thing. It's good to be transparent. It's framed up as a way of being honest and open, but I think actually a lot of times it's dishonest. It can be manipulative, and they can force it on other people to then use it against them later. And there's a chance that your company might be doing this. I think it's true that transparency on some level is a good thing, right? I mean, obviously you want to be open and honest. You want transparency. Even a lot of times when things are bad, transparency is still good. If you are going to get fired, transparency is not going to necessarily help you, but you'd much rather it than being sideswiped by getting laid off out of nowhere. So I don't want to demonize transparency entirely. However, I think that a lot of companies, employers, leaders use transparency in a way to mask negative things and then to portray them in a positive way. It's often used as a smokescreen. It's used to shift blame from someone who is responsible to somebody else. It can be used to gather information to then be used for or against associates as a leader wants, or it can be used to protect leaders, right? So it's framed up as a positive thing, but really it's used in these other ways that aren't quite what they're telling you when they say, let's be transparent. Healthy transparency should be something that we all understand, right? It should be about open communication. It should be about honesty. It should be about mutual respect. And then in a lot of companies, it should be about clarity on changes, right? Not just a way to manipulate how the changes are communicated, but just clarity on what exactly is happening, why, what direction are we going. Should be pretty simple and straightforward. The reality is that this idea of transparency, while it should be positive, it's actually used as a weapon by a lot of companies or leaders. And there are three main ways that they go about weaponizing this idea of transparency. The first way they do it is really just trying to pull the wool over your eyes. So they will take a bad message, a bad activity, they will frame it up as transparency being this really great thing so that they can then be the heroes of a bad situation, right? So maybe the company is going to go through layoffs, and they could lay everybody off, or they can be open and honest and transparent and let you know ahead of time that they're laying you off. It may not seem obvious that that's what they're doing, but people will give them credit. Well, they let people know. It wasn't just like people got sideswiped. They were very transparent and open about it. You still got laid off just the same, right? Whether they told you or they didn't, it's the same thing. So I would argue still a good thing, right? I would rather know than not, but it's used as a ploy to be able to claim transparency and how great they are, even while doing something negative. Because the real transparency would be, hey, we overstaffed in a great economy, and now that things have slowed down, we realized we made a mistake and we got to get rid of a lot of you, right? That's real transparency. The second thing that they'll do is almost emotional manipulation, really, right? So they will be transparent in hopes that you will then be transparent. Right, so a leader may open up and be very open and honest with you, but really they're just doing that so that you will open up so that they can then use that to manipulate you, right? Whether that's to use what you've said or just by opening up and being honest, they gain your favor. And then the third thing that they do is they will use transparency to gather insight. Now, this is not similar to the emotional manipulation where they're trying to pull information out of you. They're literally saying, hey, we want to be transparent. We want to see what's going on. We're going to start tracking productivity. We're going to start tracking stats and statistics. And it's framed in a way of transparency, right? Everyone's going to get to see everything. But really, they're just going to be able to collect more data on you. And they're going to be able to do it without you being concerned because you know it's coming, because it's a transparency effort. And it's hard to know because a lot of companies will track statistics because they really do use it for good purposes. But it's just one thing that sometimes companies will do. Let's start keeping track of what they're doing. Be real transparent with our workloads so that they can then gain that information and then use that information. So what is the motivation behind it? Why do this, right? Transparency should be a good thing. A lot of times transparency is a good thing. So what's the motivation behind using transparency in this negative way? The first and most obvious motivation is that it's simply self-serving, right? It benefits them to use transparency in this way. It's simply that classic HR mentality of protection, right? You're protecting yourself, you're protecting your leaders, you're protecting whatever it is, and that protection is then masked as a vulnerability, right? It's not that, hey, we're protecting ourselves here. It's, hey guys, we're going to be really transparent about things so that it softens the edges up so they can then protect themselves with everybody on board. The second reason they do it, the second motivation, is it controls the narrative. Transparency is a beautiful thing because you can say anything and do anything in the name of transparency, and you gain a little bit of credit in the bank for being a good person, right? You know, if you're going to go and rob a house, you could be transparent, knock on the door and be like, hey, I've got a gun, I'm going to come in here, I'm going to rob it. You could do that. You're being transparent. Thank God they know now. They're not going to wake up with their stuff gone. It's not any better, though. And so it gives these companies, or even just leaders, I don't want to pretend like this is always just a company thing, but it gives people the opportunity to help without actually being helpful. And then the third motivation, this is particularly true of leaders or high-level people, is they get to then take that transparency, what they learn from that, and shift the blame off of themselves down to the employees, right? If you're a leader and you start pushing transparency, everybody's got to be open and honest. You can collect attitudes, opinions, feedback. You can start to collect data, statistics, all kinds of things, which you then can use to make whatever decisions you want. And now you have documented backup as to why you've made those decisions. Or you can find where people have slipped up, and then you can say, yes, my team failed, but as you can see, it was Pete's fault, not mine. And this impacts employees a lot. It creates a lot of instability and anxiety, right? Instability in the sense that you can't really tell what's going on. On one hand, they're saying be transparent. You're trying to play ball. You're being transparent. But then it also feels like they're using that transparency against you. So what do? That kind of attitude, that kind of behavior drives anxiety up. Because now not only do you have a job that you're frustrated at, not only do you have to deal with the normal day-to-day, but now you're constantly looking over your shoulder to make sure people aren't out to get you. And it also makes people feel like they are pawns in the PR game, right? If you're someone in one of these companies that got laid off and all of the media is out there pushing how transparent the company was, it feels wrong, right? You just got terminated. The fact that they let you know a week in advance doesn't actually help you out. It's the same with performance improvement plans. You could say that's a form of transparency. Hey, we're being transparent about the fact that you've got a problem. We're going to put you on this plan. But if at the end of the plan they're forcing you out, it doesn't really make you feel any better that they did this transparency thing. And so at the end of the day, a lot of times people feel like they're just part of a game, right? You're just part of a game that your company is doing to try to make themselves look better. And the outside world just doesn't know it because they're all just praising the transparency of it all. So just to reiterate, healthy transparency is great. And if I use the layoff example, simply telling somebody something ahead of time, that's great. That is transparency in a sense. But if you really wanted to be transparent, you wouldn't just say, hey, we're laying off half the staff. We're letting you guys know a month in advance. You would tell the whole story, right? Give some context behind that truth that you're sharing, right? Hey, the economy was doing really well. The job market was booming. We hired a bunch of staff. AI came along. We realized we overstaffed in a lot of our tech areas. And as a result of that, now we have to lay off 30% of our workforce. Unfortunately, you guys, for X, Y, and Z reason, are the group that we're laying off, right? That's real transparency. So, real transparency is honest. It has context. It's got substance to what's being shared. Transparency should also empower people, not just inform, right? If all the transparency is just a talking point, it's just communication, that doesn't really help anybody. Transparency should be able to empower people, right? So, hey, we may have layoffs, or hey, we may do something, right? Whatever those actions are, people who get that transparency should be able to use it for something, right? Maybe they can go find a job. Maybe they can work harder to position themselves for an open job, or whatever the case is. But there should be some kind of actionable thing that people can do as a result of your transparency, not just always a talking point or a communication piece. Transparency can be a great thing, and transparency should be a great thing. But the unfortunate truth is that a lot of times transparency is a really beneficial tool that people will use to make really bad things seem like good things. Stay on your toes. If they're starting to talk about transparency, make sure that it's good transparency, not a smokescreen for negativity and risk. I hope this video helped. I hope that if you're in a company that's starting to do transparency measures, they're starting to really push transparency, I hope that it is true. I hope it's all real. But if it isn't, look out for that, right? Is the transparency based in the right things, or is it all just a smokescreen? And if it's not based in the right things, then guard yourself. Protect yourself. Hope this video encouraged you. If you do like this kind of content, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.